Hello, Coulson here with another Topic of the Week video. We continue MCU month with a topic specifically about characters. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr user helbertinelli, and her topic is: talk about your favorite character in the MCU. What do you think of the way they're portrayed in the movies, and how would you change it? I actually want to talk about two characters. I want to talk about Tony Stark and Agent Coulson. I kind of want to talk about both of those because I know this topic specifically asks about the movies, but considering that Coulson originated from the movies and then went on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I want to talk about that portrayal as well. First off, let's get to Tony Stark. Tony Stark is the first protagonist of the MCU. He's the one that we basically get our first impressions from the MCU because of him. And the writing of the first movie, and along with Robert Downey Jr.'s acting, really made Tony Stark a very likable character. Sure, he could be kind of a jerk, but he was more of that jerk with a heart of gold, sort of a lovable douchebag. He would do something completely obnoxious, but you couldn't really be mad. You'd just be like, "Oh, Tony." And throughout the MCU movies, at least in Phase 1, his portrayal was actually pretty solid. In Iron Man 1, we see him going from being a completely selfish prick who only cared about having fun and making weapons to someone who realized that because he only cared about making weapons, he didn't realize what these weapons were doing, and he wanted to fix that. So he had his own, sort of redemption arc, trying to fix the problems that he had created. Iron Man 2, you had his, past with his father and S.H.I.E.L.D. start to come back to haunt him. That, stuff he didn't even realize was going on. And while Iron Man 2 wasn't as good, it was still a solid movie, and I really kind of think it gets some undue hate, especially when other movies that aren't as good get praised. Avengers was great because we actually got to see Tony interact with the other, Avengers characters, other than Black Widow, because she was in Iron Man 2. I mean, especially seeing him interact with Bruce. Bruce, I think, was my favorite interactions with Tony in Avengers. Because we see the culmination of his character development. How he's trying to tell... he's basically, giving... he understands that Bruce has this part of him that he doesn't like. And while it's not the same as the arc reactor in his chest, he does... relate it, saying, you know what, I had problems with this, but I've learned to accept this as part of who I am. The Hulk is part of you. You can't ignore that. You have to accept that. And he also gave, and what's really funny is that, of all the characters, Tony is the one that gave Bruce real comfort. He didn't just say, you're fine, we're not going to kill you. He messed with him, because, he had confidence, and it's what's great about Tony is that he's been messed up before, and he's done stupid stuff, but those experiences give him the confidence in someone else to say, I know you can do this. And that's something you see throughout, his interactions with Bruce in the Avengers. From meeting him throughout the movie, up until the end, he has absolute 100% confidence in Bruce. He's zapping him, he's poking him, he's cracking jokes at him, and then, it's really bothering Steve because Steve just wants to make sure that, he doesn't Hulk out. But Tony understands that, if he couldn't withstand this, we're all doomed anyway, because one little snap and boom, he Hulks out, we're all dead, save for, Thor. But, it's nice to see that Tony's character, especially... if there's one good thing of Iron Man 3 did, is that flashback. Because you would see the way... Because if you took Tony at the very beginning of Iron Man 1, and you put him with Bruce, he'd probably be a douchebag to him. But his experiences really led him to be... He's not super nice and coddly, but he has grown as a character to the point where you can actually tell he's gone out of his way to want to help people. And even during the invasion of Manhattan, he was saying, just wait for Bruce to get here. He knows that Bruce is going to show up because he has complete confidence in him. And it's so great when you watch Phase 1, you see Tony evolve as a character to the point where he is in Avengers. I also do like his interactions with Steve and pretty much everyone, his distrust of Fury, because we know even, mostly from Iron Man 2, his utter distaste for government figures. And whilst Nick Fury isn't inherently a government figure, he does, understand that this guy is a spy, so you can't just think that this guy is being completely honest about everything. So, it's nice to see, and it's nice to see his character, and even he does come to trust Fury. Everyone does trust Fury, because Fury had everyone's good intentions at heart, even if he was a bit manipulative, which is one of the reasons why I like Fury. And honestly, I have to say, I never cared about Nick Fury in the MCU until Avengers, but that's besides the point. I mean, you see that his most negative interactions in Avengers were mostly with Steve. Less so because of Steve, and more the fact that this brought up a lot of issues with his dad, which we know from Iron Man 2. Especially the line of, "This is the guy my dad would never shut up about?" And you actually kind of get some context of, more issues that he had with his dad. And just how much Steve kind of rippled through time. But ultimately they do work together. It's after Avengers that I start having issues with the portrayal of Tony Stark. The first movie in Phase 2 is Iron Man 3, which I was excited about. Turned out to be awful. I regret watching that in theaters. The portrayal of Tony Stark in Iron Man 3 is bad because it completely kind of forgets everything about Tony's character. Okay, it's nice to see. I do admit, I liked seeing him being unable to use the Iron Man suit, so he had to basically go to a hardware store, and create his own gadgets, essentially. I liked that. And I liked it when you see Tony's intelligence. Because I think sometimes people forget that Tony Stark is actually a brilliant inventor. So seeing him being deprived of a suit that basically is the be-all end-all for Tony in terms of fighting is actually really nice. I have to talk about the whole anxiety plotline and the PTSD from Avengers. I actually kind of liked this at first until I started thinking about it. You see, Tony almost died in Avengers. He flew into space in another dimension or another part of the galaxy or whatever, and was about to die, and then got sucked in back to Earth and nearly plummeted to his death. This was supposedly the incident that gave him what I'm guessing is post-traumatic stress disorder and gave him anxiety. What problem? Why did he not get that from Iron Man 1? Iron Man 1, in the beginning of it, he is attacked by terrorists. He's all the people around him, the people that he'd been joking with, making friends with, are all killed. He is blown up by one of his own bombs to the point where he had shrapnel in him that they couldn't extract. So he has to walk around with this battery attached to him. He's forced to build weapons for a terrorist organization. And spends, I think, months, was it? Just trying to plan an escape. But this didn't give him any issues. If there's going to be something utterly different that causes him to have this reaction, there really, really needs to be a good explanation, because, holy crap, I say hands down, Iron Man 1 was more traumatic for Tony, especially finding out that Obadiah, a man that he had trusted for years, especially to run the business side of things when he didn't care about it, was, a traitor and hated him. I mean, so much of Iron Man 1 was traumatic for Tony. So why didn't he have any issues coming out of that would cause him to have the issues he had in Iron Man 3? Why is it that one instance in Avengers caused him to have, such bad, anxiety and PTSD? I mean, the only thing I can really think of is that, well, he saw the vastness of space or something, but Tony's never been one to be fazed by that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's interesting to see him struggle with these problems, though, to be perfectly honest, it doesn't exactly carry her all the way through the movie. In fact, now that I think about it, did he even have any kind of anxiety or panic attack after, the first half of the movie? I have to rewatch Iron Man 3 again, but I think they aborted that plot line. Which would... Oh my gosh, now that I think about it. I didn't even, when I started this video, I didn't even think about this point. Oh my gosh, I think they just kind of ignored that by the end, because I can't remember that really affecting him near the end of the movie. Unless it's trying to imply he was just cured. And then you have the ending of Iron Man 3, which is really the... Oh yeah, also I have to talk about the whole, was it blank slate, clean slate protocol, where he blows up all his 40-something Iron Man suits. Excuse me? I know this is supposed to be Tony basically saying, okay, I'm giving up on this, hardy har, I'm not done, I'm done with this. For over 40 remote-controlled Iron Man suits. And he never once thought, what if we have another incident like the Chitauri invasion? What if we have any threat? What if I need all these spare Iron Man suits? Nothing? That moment frustrated me so much. Because Tony would never do this. Tony's not that stupid. He makes some dumb decisions, but from that, and on top of that, I know he's not supposed to be as big of a narcissist as he was, but he spent a lot of time working on over 40, was it 40s? Yeah, it was about 40, because he had the Mark 7, and I think he had 47, I think he had the Mark 47 as the suit he used in Iron Man 3. So yeah, about 40, just completely autonomous Iron Man suits. And he just blew them up. He didn't care that he spent a ton of time working on it. I mean, sure, he was working on it mostly when he had these issues of sleeping and, almost obsessive behavior, but those could be extremely useful. I bet he wish he hadn't done that when stuff like Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron rolled around. And it's frustrating because Tony wouldn't just do something like this. I mean, I know he was doing it mostly for Pepper to show that, I care about you more than I care about this, but also, I want to talk about the fact that in Iron Man 3, what was I going to say? I had a point with this. Gosh dang it. I want to talk about something else before I get to the ending of Iron Man 3. It's talked about anxiety.
Here is some information about Iron Man 3.
That's what it was. Okay, I remember. I wanted to talk about why I didn't like the whole battery-powered Iron Man suits. Okay. The whole movie, I'm guessing the entire point of this was to set up the fact that Tony is going to get rid of his arc reactor in the end, which I'll get to that. It's stupid. But the whole battery-powered Iron Man suits. Okay. We know with the War Machine suit, it's powered by an arc reactor in the suit that's not in the body. Tony's suits generally function by being powered by his arc reactor. You see this in cases of Iron Man 1, 2, and Avengers. Iron Man 3, after that, for some unfathomable reason, he decides not to do that, have it just be battery powered. The point of this arc reactor is that it could produce a ton of power. And that the Iron Man suit could run on this. So, of course, one of the problems he runs in the movie is, oops, battery's running low. Okay, first of all, why? Okay, as a backup system, especially for the ones that are autonomous, they would have to have their own power source, and he can't build 40 arc reactors. But for his own suit, should not even be powered at all by his arc reactor? Why? Just... why would he do that? Why? This is only a hindrance. At the very least, let it be powered by his arc reactor when he's wearing it, and have it, I don't know, charge the battery instead of him having to plug it in and all that stupid stuff. Just, I know, it's just so much of this movie seemed to forget about his arc reactor in his chest and how important it is to his character. So he built this battery powered that he's basically have power source issues. He's literally a walking power source. Why would Tony do that? It's dumb. And then, okay, now I want to get to the end of Iron Man 3. I hate the ending of Iron Man 3. So, out of almost completely nowhere, in fact, out of nowhere, he goes into surgery to get his arc reactor removed and to have the shrapnel taken out of his chest. Way to just trash the entirety of his character. So what was all that talk in Avengers about how he's accepted that the arc reactor is part of him? What's with all that talk about? What about? It's like that he says that it keeps him alive. When he could have just gotten surgery at any time, why didn't he do that in Avengers 1? Why didn't he do that between movies? Why is it only now? Was he just waiting to do this? I thought the whole point of that was because it would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, to remove them, and that the arc reactor was the only thing keeping him alive. Nope. He can just get it done whenever he wants. And then he chucks his arc reactor off the side of the cliff where his house was destroyed, which is another stupid thing in Iron Man 3. And then that's his character arc in Iron Man 3. It's like the idiot who wrote that movie had no clue, didn't even watch any of the previous movies. There's nothing about this that really made any sense. And then he's talking, and then Bruce gets his cameo by just being, Tony's impromptu therapist while he's talking to him. Which is funny at first, but when you really think about it, if Tony's actually having these issues, he should be seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist. He shouldn't be talking to his buddy, who would know how to help him. But of course, that's just a joke. Possible mental illness is definitely just a joke. Lol, I'm talking to Bruce. Oh yeah, he has serious issues that basically go away. But don't worry, he blew up his Iron Man suit, so he's probably okay. He's making rational decisions. didn't watch Age of Ultron completely. But I did, have seen some scenes of him being sort of buddies with the Avengers, and those are fine. What I don't like is that he created Ultron outside of this supposed to mean something Hank Pym did, but then nope, Hank Pym is an old man, while everyone else who's in the Avengers is middle-aged at most. Tony does these, it's like, and by the time of Phase 2 comes along, it's basically like, hey, Tony creates all of his problems. He created, what's his name? Douchebag in Iron Man 3, who's the bad guy. He created Ultron. Why? It's basically like Tony sat there and be like, I just invented Skynet. This is a good idea. Why? And Tony being self-destructive and making irrational decisions doesn't cut it anymore. He's had character development. You can't go back on character development just to create a plot, because that's only going to create more plot holes. Why would he do something so stupid? I mean, he has Jarvis. He's obviously capable of creating artificial intelligence, and then he creates, accidentally Tony created Ultron, and the fact that so many people just roll with this as in, yeah, it makes so much sense. No. It doesn't. And it's stupid, and just makes Tony come off as an absolute idiot. Yes, he had some friend moments. That was dumb. Then we get to Civil War, where Tony, who's feeling so depressed, decides the UN is the ones who should be running the Avengers. I don't care how messed up Tony's life is. I don't care how badly they're writing Tony. You don't have him ever side with the government. Did none of you watch Iron Man 2? It's literally his entire character arc in Iron Man 2. F you government. And then he hands it off to the freaking UN. The UN couldn't cook rice. The UN couldn't hard boil an egg without causing an international incident. The UN is useless. And you're going to hand them complete control of the Avengers? Why would Tony ever do this? He would not. Tony would be the one saying this stuff. How the UN is useless, they couldn't do anything. He should be the one saying this. If he wasn't going to hand his Iron Man suit over to the US government, why would he hand it over to the United Nations, who are pretty much infamous in their stupidity? Because plot. That's why. Because Tony has to do something stupid that goes completely to erase his character development just to create a plot. And his whole, the Winter Soldier killed my parents. I'm gonna fight you, Steve. You used to be my friend. Okay. Here's a problem with this, and this is a problem overall. Tony was never actually given any strong friendship with Steve. Sure, he kind of came to terms with him in Avengers. Avengers 2, I saw he did have some moments, but nothing to really create a deep bond with, And then Civil War, it acts like they've just been these best friends. And it's this utter betrayal. It's like, you guys really haven't been that good of friends. Especially to justify such an angry reaction. Tony Stark has a lot of problems past Phase 1. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the writers basically don't know what to do with him. His character arc was mostly complete by Phase 1, but instead of letting him, exist as a character and develop further and learn other lessons, they basically tried to constantly erase his character and then create new lessons for him to learn. And it's stupid. If I had my way with Tony Stark's character, if I could write him however I wanted, past Phase 1, he would basically, in a lot of ways, be sort of a team leader. He basically took charge of a lot of stuff in Avengers. And given that he's probably one of the most experienced, outside of Steve, he does have a lot of experience in leading. And honestly, I would have really liked to have seen him come out as the de facto leader, maybe co-leader with Steve, of the Avengers. I would like to see his relationship with Pepper develop, but since, they hate, Marvel and Disney hate Gwyneth Paltrow, they basically kicked her off and didn't sign her up again, which is why they broke Tony and Steve up in Civil War. Honestly, I'd have him and Pepper get married. Maybe they start a family. Maybe at some point he retires from Avengers. At the very least, goes part-time and helps when he needs to be, and gives the leadership position to be, Steve, he's the de facto leader. And maybe see him take on a more mentorship role, especially some of the younger characters. That's what I would have done with his character, especially going over the years. Because Robert Downey Jr. is getting a little older, so you can't have him be the exact same role he's always been in. It's an evolution of his character, and that's what I would have done. I think mostly that's about it for how I would have handled Tony Stark's, and it's just a quick little thing. I haven't really thought too deeply about it, or what specific stories I would do with him. Because you would need to start rewriting all the Phase 2 movies, all the Phase 3 movies, and it gets pretty hefty in terms of work. And that's the general gist of what I would want to do with this character. Now, a little aside, I want to talk about Agent Coulson for a bit. Agent Coulson was a minor character throughout Phase 1 movies. He was first introduced in Iron Man 1, he was basically just this government agent guy, and ultimately it was the reveal that he was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. He appeared in Iron Man 2, Thor, and Avengers. Ultimately taking his biggest role in Avengers, where he ultimately dies, cementing the team's, anger at his loss to come together as a team. Then he came back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Initially, this was met with outright, adoration. Everyone loved Coulson. There was a Coulson's Live project going on right after Avengers came out, because no one wanted him to stay dead. We all loved him, and the fact that he actually got more, personality in Avengers. We found out that he's a absolute Captain America fanboy. He was dating this woman who was a cellist. We got these little bits of his character. He had these Captain America trading cards. And then he dies, and that was sad. But then we're like, okay, but this is a comic book movie. He can just come back, right? And he did. And that's what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. happened. And for the first, and when it started off, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was pretty solid with Coulson's character. He was underutilized, and I honestly didn't like the structure of the show and the fact that they basically didn't have him interact with any of the movie characters until you get to Lady Sif, which that was by far the best episode. When Lady Sif comes in, that was by far the best episode in the show. But then you get the post-Winter Soldier tie-in, which that's when everything goes to crap. He ends up becoming this darker character, and oh my gosh, they actually made Coulson a dark character. He seems to have mostly gotten over that by the time of the episodes that I happened to watch recently, which are the really stupid Ghost Rider episodes. But there's a whole bunch of what I talked about was Tony, and the fact that they don't know what they're doing with his character. They don't know how to move him on. That's exactly what happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson is shown, especially in the short, a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer, to be hyper competent. You know, like far more than you would expect from a mild-mannered guy like him. And in the show, at that point, he ends up being dark, and I hate to say it, but at some point, he becomes no better than the Hydra people he's trying to fight. He's openly willing to just slaughter anyone who gets in his way. And the second I saw him go up to Ward and brutally kill him in the most painful way possible by literally crushing his chest, he's like, no, I was done. He's also choking people and trying to kill them. Like, do you know nothing about his character? Good gosh. He didn't deserve this. What we should have had, what they should have done with his character, is bring him back to the movies. Ultimately have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. tie into the movies completely. Maybe have him meet more movie characters. And honestly, S.H.I.E.L.D. was such a non-entity in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It annoyed the hell out of me. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. was gone and everything was Hydra. And I wanted to have him interact with characters. Talk to Maria Hill, which he did, but it was dumb because it's, especially when you get to post Iron Man 3 or post Winter Soldier, when Maria Hill became like Tony Stark's secretary or something. I want to see him interact with these characters. I want to see him come back, and I want to see these characters be happy to see him alive. I mean, especially Thor, Tony, Steve, Natasha and Clint. I mean, less so Bruce because he never really knew him, but I mean all these other characters that knew him, especially Thor and Tony. Thor watched him get stabbed by Loki in Avengers. He would be ecstatic to have him back. Tony would be glad because he's known him the longest. But we didn't get any of that. We didn't get him back in the movies, which would have been so great to have Coulson in the movies. Of granted, he would still have been a waste considering the writing quality past Avengers, but if I had control, that is what I would do with his character. Ultimately, both Tony and Coulson were completely wasted, and they were two such excellent characters. I think that's about it for today. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, I'll put that up here when I get that done. If you want to submit a topic, make sure you follow the rules that I'll post down below. Make sure that it's something about something fictional, and it can be something from an in-universe perspective or from a more meta writing perspective. It can be about stuff, any kind of media, really. And if you're unsure if I'm familiar enough with something to do a topic on it, just ask and I'll tell you if I am or not. We have one more week left of Halloween week. So let's see what next week's topic is going to be to finish out Halloween month for the MCU. Thank you for watching.